Hey folks, Rob Ager here, and today I'm going to give my reaction, my debunk of the Wendy Theory video, which is an interpretation of the Shining film that's been quite a popular video over the past year. I don't normally do debunk videos on other people's interpretations of movies that I've reviewed, but as you'll see in this video, I've got some good reasons for doing that. One of the reasons I don't normally do debunk videos on other people's interpretations is, first of all, I want you guys to sort of look at all the different interpretations for yourself. I don't want to just say to people, oh, my stuff is the only stuff that's worth watching, you shouldn't look at anybody else's. There's tons of videos out there offering interpretations on The Thing, Alien, The Exorcist. These are all movies that I've done videos on, and I never ever tell people don't go and watch the other ones. As far as I'm concerned, I invite people to, go and watch the other ones and watch mine as well, and you make up your own mind what you think at the end of the day. And I'm confident enough in the quality of my own work that I don't need to tell people not to look at the competition's videos on it. Now, it's very rare that I do debunk videos for that reason, but also because I don't typically watch other interpretations of The Shining, not anymore anyway, not for years. And the reason I don't is because when I first posted my massive article on The Shining in 2008, when there wasn't much out there at the time. I think there was one or two other people online who were posting, serious attempts to try and break down this movie and make sense of it. So I posted this massive video that went into all different concepts, like 20 or 22 chapters, and it covered most of the ground. Most of the interpretations that keep getting regurgitated by other channels over the years since. And often when other channels take the ideas that I'd already put forward in my original article, they often cite me. And at the same time, I think that some people have probably discovered those themes and interpretations for themselves just by studying the movie on their own, even though they might not be aware that I'd posted a big article covering those themes previously. And that's fine. If those people discovered those things on their own, then they don't need to cite me. Why should I be cited for something that somebody else discovered on their own? So that's all cool. But the one major debunk video I've done over the years was regarding the Shining moon landing interpretations, which were featured and criticised a lot in the movie Room 237 and the press response to that movie. And I didn't take part in Room 237 specifically because when the guy who was making the video, I think it was Rodney Asher, that was his name, he was putting together the video and he was inviting people to get them involved, and he invited me, and he seemed like a really, really nice guy. But when he gave me the list of other names that were going to be involved, I was like, I'm not sure about this, because there's a couple of people on that list who are posting stuff that I completely disagree with, and I don't want my work to be associated with theirs because, frankly, I think some of those other interpretations are garbage. And something that was happening a lot at the time when the Room 237 movie came out, which I didn't take part in, was that there were a lot of people who thought that the moon landing interpretations of The Shining were my interpretations. They thought that I was the one who'd put out that work, and part of the problem with that was that in Room 237 you couldn't see the faces of the people being interviewed about their interpretations of the movie. You could only hear the voices. So audiences didn't find it so easy to associate particular interpretations to particular people. And so all that got mixed up, and that's another reason I'm glad I didn't take part in that movie, even though I enjoyed the movie for what it was, despite disagreeing with 70% of what was in it. But because a lot of people were mistakenly assuming that I was the one putting the moon landing interpretations out, I made a debunk video specifically debunking that theory, both to disassociate myself from the person who came up with that theory, and also because I thought there was a lot of disinformation and garbage that was contained in the theory anyway. So that was a rare example of me doing that. Now I'm going to do it again with the Wendy Theory video, and pretty much for the same reason as well. I've got a load of notes here that I've taken about that video on screen, so I'll be referring to these as we go along. Okay, so the first thing that really put me off watching the Wendy Theory video, because I only watched it properly today, the thing that put me off initially was in the title of the video it said, "Finally explains The Shining." And I've seen this time and time again on YouTube. Whenever a film study video is done that says "finally explains," as if, oh, this is the only video you watch in order to understand this movie and there's no other interpretation. I generally find that those videos are usually garbage, and it's pretty much a clickbait title. And I think in this case with the Wendy Theory, I think the title "Finally Explains" has been a major factor in why the video has caught on so much. But there are other reasons why the video's caught on so much, and we'll go a little bit into that. The major problem with this video, from my personal point of view, is that the author heavily cites me at the beginning of the video as being sort of like maybe the inspiration for them making the video. And they specifically cite me in the video description. And this gives the impression to the viewer that the Wendy Theory video is somehow a continuation or a culmination of the research and interpretations that I'd already published, but it's absolutely not. The Wendy Theory goes very much against the videos that I've published and the articles I've published over the years. So it's interesting that the author has tried so hard to associate their work to mine, even though it completely mismatches on a lot of levels. Okay, so yeah, this is a problem. Just like with the moon landing theories, there are people in the comments section on the Wendy Theory video who think that I produced the video and that I, for some reason, put it out there on a separate channel for people to watch. They think I wrote it and edited it, and that's another good reason why I need to publish this debunk, is so that people know that the Wendy Theory is not my video at all. It's somebody else's completely. Oh, by the way, yeah, that's an important point. The video author, although they claim to be citing my work as an inspiration, as far as I know, they never ever contacted me. I've checked back with my emails. I've done some keyword searches in my emails, and I haven't found any evidence that whoever made this video contacted me to say, oh, what do you think of this interpretation? So no contact, and yet they cite me almost as if I took part in it. And there's a weird thing in it. The video description, it says, "We have finally solved The Shining." Who's we? Because the video author calls himself Rob Navarro. I can't find any specific Rob Navarro anywhere online who this video might be attributable to. So I did a little quick check on the social media, and there didn't seem to be any links in that respect. But also, the video author has used a computer-generated voice instead of using his own voice in the video, so it sounds really weird and stupid. That doesn't in itself debunk the arguments in the video. But I'm generally distrusting of people publishing material and not saying who they are. Now, I would understand if the Wendy Theory video was, if it involved some sort of really, I don't know, maybe a politically incorrect interpretation that might cause a backlash against the author, then they might want to put it out anonymously. But that's not the case here. I don't think there's really much that's controversial about the Wendy Theory video. So I wonder why the author hasn't used his or her own voice, and they haven't got a picture of themselves to say who they are. There's no author biography or anything like that. It's just a totally mysterious identity, and yet they try to so heavily link their work to mine. And the title at the start of the video, from what I recall, it says "Rob at the Movies." Rob as in Rob Navarro or Rob Ager, because some of the people in the comments section were saying, oh, that's a clue that it's actually Rob Ager's video. So yeah, Rob at the Movies in the title thing was a bit of a weird one. And but if you're going to hide your identity in terms of not using your actual voice on the video and not linking to who you really are in social media in the real world, then why use your actual name, Rob Navarro? So I think the Rob Navarro name is a fake name. And at the start of the video, there's like a little graphic that shows two people that are putting up like a billboard poster with like rakes or whatever you call them, mops or whatever, and putting up this thing that says Rob at the movies. So all that, the context of this video was really weird, to the point where I wonder if the person who's posted it has just posted it as some sort of a joke or disinformation or something like that. I don't know. All right, so let's explore the theory in itself on the assumption that the author has actually genuinely tried to post something that is a heartfelt, genuine deconstruction of the movie, and is not some sort of weird trolling exercise. So we'll go along with that basis. Now, the outline of the video, I'll give the briefest outline that I can, because I think the concept of the video was really, really simple, even though it's 40 minutes long. So I've written a brief description here, which is that the theory that's presented in the Wendy Theory video is that Wendy was the abusive parent towards Danny, the child character in the film, and that she projects her guilt onto her husband, Jack Torrance, and that he hasn't actually done anything wrong and doesn't even try to kill anybody in the movie. And all the scenes that mismatch the theory or point to Jack or ghosts as abusers of Danny, these are all just hallucinations of Wendy's. Okay, so it's a pretty basic, simple idea. And the hallucinations thing is interesting because that gives the video author a sort of carte blanche to sort of say, oh, well, you know, oh, here's something that doesn't fit with this interpretation. Oh, it must be Wendy's hallucination. So you could just go with that and just write off like about maybe 80% of the movie as just being Wendy's hallucinations. So it doesn't work for me on that level. Before we get into the details of why it doesn't work within the Shining movie itself, I'll just mention first that it mismatches Kubrick's larger filmography. The idea of Wendy as being the abuser within the family, it just does not fit with the themes that span Kubrick's work. Typically, there would be either sexual abuse or some form of child abuse going on in Kubrick's films that spans most of his filmography. You've got it in Lolita, which was an adaptation of a novel. And yeah, in Lolita, the main character is basically an abuser of this young girl who is at puberty. I can't remember her age is specified in the film, but in the book I think she was 10 years old. So Kubrick made that movie, which had a male abuser. Then you had The Clockwork Orange, which had the lead character as a rapist. Yeah, and then you had in certain shots of that movie, you had white mannequins of naked women in the Korova milk bar, and if you look closely at them, they've got the hands chained behind their backs, and they represent sex slaves. And then you've got Barry Lyndon, where the lead character becomes abusive towards his stepson, and he's also emotionally abusive of his wife. And then what else we got there? Yeah, Full Metal Jacket. Yeah, I mean, you've got a heavy prostitution theme going on in Full Metal Jacket. You know, these soldiers are, let's all gangbang a prostitute and we're going to pay as little money as possible and we're all going to manhandle her and stuff like that. Then you've got Eyes Wide Shut, which has got a massive theme of super rich guys basically abusing female prostitutes, and one of them dies, and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, you go way back, you've got Dr. Strangelove, which Kubrick made I think it was released in 1964. That movie very blatantly has got stuff in it about military generals sleeping with the secretaries, and at the end of the movie, the Strangelove character comes up with this master plan, which will involve the leadership hiding in underground bunkers with an abundance of female sex servants, 10 females to each male, and they're all made up about it. So that's a kind of pattern about the male sexuality, where there's a tendency among certain types of males in our society to be sexually abusive of other people, either of kids or of women, or even of each other. And I'm not talking about that from a Me Too perspective. I'm not taking any political stance on that. It's just a theme that was there throughout Kubrick's work. And then in The Shining, to have Jack presented as an abusive character, but it turns out to be, oh no, it's just his wife all along, that just does not fit with all of Kubrick's full filmography. So yeah, that's a major issue with it. This is a major one. In terms of the actual evidence presented in the Wendy Theory video, most of it is basically, oh look, here's a continuity error in a scene, and every time there's a continuity error, it indicates that Wendy is imagining the scene as just a hallucination. Well, if you take that approach, then pretty much every scene in the whole movie would just be a hallucination, because there's continuity errors on all kinds of levels all over the place in the movie. There's even continuity errors in terms of the actual times that events take place. You see clocks on walls that have the wrong times and things like that. So if you assume that a continuity error equals Wendy hallucination, then the entire movie from beginning to end would just be one big hallucination, which doesn't make any sense. I mean, even with David Lynch's work, there are at least some scenes that are very specifically wakened scenes. And from those wakened scenes, you can sort of make sense of what's going on psychologically in the dream sequences. Yeah, right at the beginning of the Wendy Theory video, the first point that is made where the idea is introduced that Wendy is hallucinating things is the scene of Jack being verbally abusive to her because she interrupts him while he's writing. And, well, nothing is given in the video that even remotely suggests that Wendy is hallucinating. We've got some continuity errors in there, but you've got two characters. You've got Jack in there. It could be his hallucination. And I don't think the continuity errors indicate a hallucination anyway. Kubrick took a lot of the tropes of horror, the visual tropes, and he sort of flipped them and changed them, flipped them on the heads. And, with a lot of ghost story films, horror films, like maybe Poltergeist, you get things like chairs moving around, a kid's toy moves across a table, stuff like that, lights flashing on and off, and it's all done in a very obvious way. By the way, Poltergeist is a marvellous movie for different reasons. I'm not knocking that movie. But Kubrick took that kind of stuff and did it in a more subtle way. So you will get lights that switch on and off between shots. You don't consciously notice it, but subconsciously you feel that there's something not right. Hang on, there was a light on there and now it's off, but you don't verbally say that in your head as you're watching the movie. And then you've got the mismatch in set designs, which is now quite well known. And then you've got props moving around between shots, which is almost like ghosts are moving things around. And that creates the generalized sense that something is not right in this hotel. I'm not getting the cobwebs, I'm not getting the spooky dark hallways and stuff that we normally get in a ghost movie, but somehow this very well lit and quite beautiful hotel is somehow still disorientating, yeah, and makes me feel slightly ill at ease. And yeah, the consistency of continuity errors throughout the story on all kinds of levels gives that visual impression that something is not right. I don't think it's got anything to do with saying this scene is a hallucination and this one isn't. So you got the Jack scene where he's at the typewriter, and the guy in the video says, well, you've got some continuity errors here, therefore it's Wendy's hallucination. But it could be Jack's hallucination, because Jack is writing a story on his typewriter, and it could be that as he is writing the story, he is writing about his wife coming in and him giving her abuse, and incorporating that into the story. For me, that makes a lot more sense, because the scene starts with Jack writing and ends with Jack writing, and Wendy comes in the middle of all that as if he's just imagining her. So I think that fits a lot better. And then you've got the scene later on where Jack is at the table and he's just had the nightmare about supposedly killing Wendy and Danny. And she kicks off on him because Danny shows up with bruises on his neck. And the author just says, oh, well, this is just Wendy projecting and Jack isn't really there, or something like that. And it's like, well, no, Jack has got the typewriter right there in front of him. And if you look at the shot, you see Wendy and Danny, they appear to be almost coming up out of the typewriter. So again, I think the typewriter is a major issue. I mean, if you go to the big article on The Shining that's on my website, which I'll link in the video description below, there's a chapter in there. Let me find it a moment. Which talks about this stuff. Yeah, chapter 19, maybe it was about Danny. That's part of my written analysis on my site. And that chapter goes into all these various clues that there are parts of the Shining story that are actually being written by Jack as the story is going on. And it ties into the idea that there are multiple generations of Jack. It's a bit of a complex one to get into. I'm not going to go into it here, but if you go and check out that chapter, chapter 19 in my written analysis, it will help you to make sense of all that. Okay, so let's get back to my major points. So yeah, I've not found anything in the Wendy Theory video that gives any kind of credible reason to assume that that Wendy is hallucinating everything. Now, the most interesting thing in the Wendy video, and this is something I've wondered about over the years, and I'm glad that this was in the video, because I was going to completely write off the Wendy Theory video as total garbage, and most of it I do think is garbage, to be honest. You know, all respect to the author if they were being genuine in posting the video, but I do strongly disagree with the majority of what's in the video. But the one interesting thing is the idea that Wendy at times seems to be implicated as being the abuser of Danny. You know, I put it in my video on the bear costumed man. What was it called? Danny's Ordeal and the Bear Costumed Man. That's the video that I've done, which has had about 1.5 million views. I put it across in that the woman in room 237 basically represents Jack as the abuser of Danny, and that the scene, you know, parallels with the scene of Danny going to get his fire engine and his dad being there on the bed, and his dad acts really weird to him in that scene. It's a very creepy scene, and as far as I was concerned, and I still think this is the case, the room 237 scene with the woman hag is basically a dream sequence, and it's a repetition of what happened to Danny when he was sat on his dad's knee when he interrupted him while he was supposedly sleeping. And yeah, so I mean, you've probably seen that video. You can go and watch it. But there are things in the movie that point to the idea that maybe Wendy could be the abuser, or that both of Danny's parents are abusive to him in some way or another. And I do think there's a little bit of merit in that, and I might do a separate video on it, because if I'm going to do that, I want to do it properly, and I want to reference all the scenes properly. But there are a couple of little points in the Wendy Theory video that that get at that particular subject, and some of those are points that I kind of agree with. But there's only about 2 or 3 of them. Now, what else can I say that's positive about the Wendy Theory video? Oh, one thing is that there's a hell of a lot of continuity errors pointed out in the Wendy Theory video, which some of them are continuity errors I'd never noticed before. So the video author seems to have done a really good job of picking up on new continuity errors, but I think he's misinterpreted them as being Wendy's indications of Wendy's hallucinations. Yet once you throw out all of the continuity error evidence as not being an indication of hallucinations, I think the Wendy Theory video almost completely falls apart. But most of all, the most important thing I wanted to say, I didn't make that video. It's not associated to me, it's not approved by me, and yeah, whoever made it, they should just come out and say who they really are. You know, sit in front of a camera, say, hey, it's me, my name is blah, 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 I'm the one who made the video. Because by hiding your identity, it makes me wonder what the hell you're playing at, you know. All right, folks, that's it. I will see you guys soon. This is Rob Ager signing off. Bye for now.